it was funny because we were obviously Chat GPT. You can generate programs, right, very quickly. And I read this thread, and I'm like, yeah, like that's so true. Like, is there going to be a need for software engineers? And this one guy wrote a thread where he's like, yeah, like we're still going to need software engineers. Who the hell is going to understand the Chat GPT output? Like, you still need engineers.
That's a good point.
I think
I was like, good point. Shit, I never thought of
if
that.
an AI can code on its own and make it correct, I think we have bigger problems to deal with.
What's going on, world? Welcome to episode 8 of the Select All podcast. I'm Taran, your wealth geek, loves everything about wealth and personal finance. We got Kulwinder in the house, Kulwinder, the coding nerd, who loves programming in his free time. And then we got the good old grumpy engineer, Mo. Should I say what he likes doing?
Yeah, he likes yelling at people.
Yeah.
We're just going to make this persona about him, and it's not going to be true. It's going to be like...
Yeah.
The grumpy
people are just going to be like, oh, it's the grumpy engineer.
The guy that is still stuck in 2005.
Yeah. Who uses Instagram via the website.
Yes, that was hilarious. All right, so we got a good show for you guys today. We got a few things to cover. In terms of products, we have a couple that we're going to go through. The first one is a Twitter alternative, or is it T2.social? So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to get into talking about an app called TickTick, and we have some contrasting opinions on the podcast, so you might enjoy that. And in What's Hot, we're going to cover
Dall E.
Dall E.
Yeah. And then also Instagram challenging Be Real with candid stories.
That's right. I was looking at the wrong spot there. Yeah. So Dall E and how Instagram is challenging Be Real with the candid stories. Thank you, Cole.
No worries.
All right. Let's get right into it.
All right, Mo, if you want to share your screen, and then Tran, if you just kick it off in terms of what is this? What are we looking at here?
All right. So we are looking at T2.social. Is it just me? Is it all black on the share?
Yeah, that's Mo's probably dark view or something.
Dark view? Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Mo's using dark view. It's all good. So what Mo is on, he's on the T2.social page. And so T2.social, I actually heard about it on a podcast that I was listening to. And it seems like there's a lot of people right now trying to challenge Twitter with an alternative or build something close to it. And this is one of them. Just from first glance, and we literally just found out about it, or I just found out about it. From first glance, it looks like a Twitter clone. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very similar. What I think they're lacking is obviously the hashtags and things along those lines. But since they probably just started, they just went with the bare bone kind of MVP, and they said, what does Twitter have? Which is the timeline, right? TL. Everybody talks about that. So they just brought that in. Yeah.
And listening on the podcast, like this was started 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. So it seems, just at first glance, it seems like they did a good job putting it together in such short time. Again, I'm not a developer. Maybe you two can speak more to it about how it looks on first glance. I don't know if you've clicked around in it.
Yeah, like I think personally, I do love the design. I'm like taking a look at it. It doesn't.
What's there to like? It's exactly Twitter. It's not like it's an original design. Bro, this is literally Twitter.
It is. But there are differences in terms of like I mentioned, the hashtags and things along those lines. What my point was is that it's not and maybe I misspoke there, but what I meant was the thing about Twitter is not the front end. That's not what the engineering and why Twitter is known for Twitter. It's just being able to actually send that much information and have it be updated as quickly as possible, that's the engineering feat, and that's what Twitter is known for. The front end itself is not that complex, right? It's
I
a
mean,
fairly basic
even as like
structure.
with the amount of users and basically the feature set, like it's not super complicated. I feel like this could just be at this stage. This is basically like a side project a new intern can do, right? Like,
Correct.
I'm not. No,
Honestly,
it is what it is. Like, I think it's this guy Gabor. Like, dude,
yeah, he's
it's not
probably like,
bad.
"Thanks, Mo."
It's not bad work, but it also is at this scale is not complicated. Like, I think a lot of people can do this, right?
Yeah,
As I think Cole was saying, the main thing about Twitter is not what it or the feature set of Twitter, it's the scale it's operating at, right?
Yeah.
Like, this guy is on SQL. Like, I'm sure Twitter runs on some weird hybrid of MongoDB and SQL to like manage all this
yeah,
data. Like, I think,
Interesting.
yeah, like I think when you like if I go to Twitter right now, like people, oh, I was looking up Twitter on Twitter news. Like, if you go on Twitter, like the fact that you can go and
Hmm.
explore, like there's a lot of engineering,
yeah,
like rant, like
Hmm.
I guess having this stuff be updated like real time, seeing what's
yeah.
trending. That this is where the real complexity is, right?
Hmm.
There you go. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's the
yeah,
real time portion, right? And not
Hmm.
being robust enough to take the load of that many users all at once. Especially when things start popping off in the world,
yeah,
they all go to Twitter to just see what's happening, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
And so
Yeah. It's a
being
news
able to
source.
have that, exactly, being able to have that is very powerful.
Hmm.
And that is all the back end engineering. So when you say it's like, oh, how does it look? And it's like, yeah, like it looks good. Like it's a pretty
Yep.
good design. But it's not something revolutionary. Like he
Yeah.
even talks about
Yeah.
GraphQL, right? That's what they probably use at Twitter, and that makes sense, right?
With some
That's when the decision
heavy
starts.
modifications. It's not like your
Yeah,
average GraphQL. I'm pretty sure. Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
Hmm.
we're talking. We're supposed to talk about T2, but we're really going to be talking about Twitter, I guess. There's like,
yeah,
I forget if it was a blog post or a podcast I heard this, but like, Twitter had to solve a problem where like every time Justin Bieber tweeted something, there'd be a huge spike in traffic, right? And they had to like, they're like, why is this site? Why are our services crashing at these random moments? And it's due to like someone famous. I guess in the in the early days, like they would tweet something and just cause a huge spike in traffic, and things would die, right? And like
yeah.
Hmm.
it's those kind of engineering problems that comes up in the scale that Twitter is operating at.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, actually, because it's like I read this article about abstractions. And in software in general, there's always layers and layers of abstractions, right? And that's how people begin kind of modeling things in their head. I'll bring this back to Elon as well somehow. But so there's abstractions of like, okay, you've abstracted the network layer, right? Like when we're programming, like a server, like a, I don't know, like a web server on a web server, or an app like this, he probably didn't have to worry about the web server, the TCP like network packets, and all the internet, how the internet actually functions and things along those lines. That's been abstracted away from him, right?
Hmm.
And generally, when you start a service like this, you use technologies where all of that is abstracted away from you. But with these companies where like Google and Twitter, they need to actually go down into the layers even below what they're used to, or what your service is using, and actually
Hmm.
modify those for their needs. And the reason for that is we rely on these abstractions, but these abstractions aren't perfect. And for that reason, you always have to go down layers to actually fix those problems, right? And that's what people don't understand. So, for example, Google, they've gone ahead and changed like TCP protocol things, from my understanding. Like they had to change different things around the HTTP protocol. They've made the quick protocol, right? And my understanding is it's an alternative to HTTP. So it's like they had to re-engineer some of those protocols that we take for granted, or most services on the internet do take for granted, because they just use the abstraction, and they can't use the abstraction because it would it would make their service much slower. And the reason Google is able to provide results in like 15 milliseconds, like think about that, like 15 milliseconds, they had to index your search somehow and figure out all the sources that what you just typed, and
Mm-hmm.
under 15 milliseconds it comes to your web page. That's insane. To be able to
That
do
is.
that, you have to really, really, really engineer at another level, right? And so when you're making a social network like this, like T2, it's like unless he gets funding, I don't
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's gonna take off,
Yeah.
because you need funding to be able to scale and compete with the network effects of Twitter.
Yeah. I think he's in the middle of that. Just from when I was listening to the podcast, he is in the middle of some rounds. He didn't speak to it, so it's probably active. He didn't
But
want to
is he gonna get
touch on it.
funding? Like I
You
feel
never
okay.
know. It
I think
depends on your connections, right?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get at is that like a social media site is not taken over by a clone, right? They're taken over by a completely different paradigm. Like
Mm-hmm.
face like we started with Facebook, right? But then I guess a lot of Facebook users or like the active non old people
Mm-hmm.
moved to Instagram, but that's a totally different paradigm of what Facebook was, right? Facebook was
Mm-hmm.
you share a mixed media content about you and your family or whatever. Instagram is
Mm-hmm.
like focused on pictures. So like I feel like the successor to Twitter is not going to look like Twitter. It's going to be
Yeah.
totally something different.
I see what you're saying, Mo, and that makes a lot of sense, and it's funny because he did allude to that in his conversation as you're talking. I'm recalling the podcast that I heard where he was talking, and he did share about how um, he's still trying to figure out that key feature that would separate T2 from other social platforms. As an example, like with Twitter, what do you connect Twitter with? It's a platform where you can, like what it's known for is you can't put in more than what 140 characters, or did they increase it, something like that, right?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah, and then with Instagram, it's known for, okay, you're taking pictures. It's known for taking pictures and showing off pictures essentially. Then you have TikTok with the little videos that people post, right? And so every social media platform has their one key standout feature that separates them from the rest and that makes them unique amongst each other, right? And I think so. Mo, to your point, yeah, right now I don't think he has that, but it seems like what we're witnessing is something that is developing every day. So it's like, how they say document your progress, and I feel
Mm.
like by putting out a MVP, we might actually see something that might take off in the future because they're actively like adding to it, changing it, and you can see it right on the timeline. They're making updates, they're doing this, they're doing that, right? So it'll be interesting to see how far this goes.
I
I'm
think
gonna
the benefit.
hijack. Oh, go
Go
on.
ahead.
I'm gonna hijack this
No, 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 go.
conversation. No, no, no. You finish this and then I'll go.
All right. I was just thinking, it's kind of good. I think the one winning case for him, or in his defense, is that
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who don't like Elon, and so they might just jump on this. I heard, I don't know if it's the same one. It might be on a Hacker News. I saw like 20,000 people joined in like less than like a couple weeks or something, and
Oh wow.
so I could see this getting traction because of that reason, but it it's still not Twitter yet, right? And so
Yeah.
I think he's a whiles away. I wouldn't discount him just because you never know, right? Especially
Yeah.
in this type of world, the Goliath has fallen, right? And it happens, but it's funny because it's like all the people that would fund him are most likely funding Elon or anyways. So that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
So that's the main issue, I
Yeah.
think.
All
It's a
right. I'm
fair
gonna
How
point.
you gonna
hijack
hijack this, Mo? Yeah.
with a bright idea, like a future thing of, I guess, a Twitter. What's it called? Like successor is something which combines Twitter with like the the interactivity or like the dynamism of like something like Be Real, right? Where it's
Mm.
not curated, it's like on the spot, you have to come up with something. So I was
Mm.
thinking, like, yo, what if the app prompts you with like a query, like, what are your thoughts on X, right? And then on the
Mm.
spot, you have to
Oh.
not type it, you have to say it, like, you have to make a voice note, and then your voice note gets added to like
I
whatever
like that.
a
I
feed.
like that.
Yo,
That's a
that's really
really good
good.
idea.
That's
I
really
think we should
good.
take that out of the pod. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Someone's gonna listen to this and create it. Just make sure you give us credit
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
make sure you give us
and some
credit.
paychecks when it blows up.
That's funny. That's a really good idea, in my opinion. I think I did want to kind of jump to that the Instagram story that we're gonna have coming up. That would have been a nice
Okay.
segue, but I think we have to talk about
Yeah.
TickTick first.
All right. Let's do this.
All right. So moving on to our second product of the pod. So we're gonna talk about TickTick. So TickTick, I heard about this through MKBHD, Marcus Brownlee. For those of you living under the rock, he's got a huge YouTube channel, and puts up really good content. But anyways, I am a fan of writing things down when it comes down to to dos. I have this value that I live by. I don't want to keep it in my brain. I want to put it on a sheet of paper so I don't have to worry about it, right? And so my sheet of paper is my phone. And over the past few years, I've been trying different apps that not only I can use for adding my to-dos to, but for tracking habits as well. And I may have mentioned this to you guys in the past about creating an app that is an all-in-one sort of app. And I feel like this is what TickTick is, because not only is it a tracker for your to-do list, but it also is a habit tracker. So you can put in your routines that you're looking to develop and do, for example, on a daily basis, and you can make that what is called a daily. And so that's a separate tab on the platform. And then you have another tab for your to-do list. And then what's also cool, I haven't used this a whole lot, but you can also connect your calendar to it. So if you wanted to, you can see all of that in one shot. And it has a built-in Pomodoro timer, which is really good when you're, trying to do focus work, deep work, things of that nature. And everything in one platform. And I thought that the value that they provide just from the free version is awesome. I did end up paying for it because I think it's really, really useful for me, and I see value in the paid version for myself. And yeah, I just thought it is an amazing platform to use. So for anyone out there that is looking for an all-in-one sort of to-do list, habit tracker, Pomodoro timer, this might be it for you. However, Mo, I think you got something to say, right?
Honestly, like TickTick, it is. I don't know. I don't have anything against TickTick. I use Todoist, but to be honest, to me, they're more or less the same thing, right?
Mm.
They're both habits.
Todoist
Like,
is an habit tracker too. Habit tracker too. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, what is a habit tracker? You literally set up a project with the daily reoccurring tasks. Like, it's not super common. I actually don't use Todoist or TickTick for habit tracking. I have. Let
Mm.
me see if I can pull this up.
But see,
Yeah,
you're using a separate app though, Mo, for that. Like,
I use
you know what I mean? So it's
this app specifically because it's not like a check mark, right? Well, you can have those, but it also will integrate with data from your phone or watch to like give you a better metric, right? Like
Mm.
like exactly right here. Like this guy his goal is to run X amount, right? And it will actually you won't have to input that data. It collects it from your phone, right?
interesting.
Similar other things, but anyways, it's a small thing. Like yeah, same with number of steps, etc. And
Now, what
it
would be cool is if they took the streaks data and integrated it as a part of the Todoist or TickTick. That would be
well
cool. Just like
yeah,
make an adapter.
Well, like if you mark off stuff here, like I use it to track weight, it will also sync with Apple Health, right?
Mm.
So it does like the two-way syncing, which is pretty neat. But sorry, we're not talking about this product today.
So
We're talking about
yeah. Yeah, so TickTick tracks your progress as well.
Mhm.
So for example, if you're doing a trying to start a daily habit and you check in every day, right? And say you miss a few days, it will tell you how many days you've covered in the month. So it'll give you like a percentage, right?
Mm.
So in that sense, yeah, you can definitely see that, and it's actually pretty cool because they have a desktop version as well, and on the desktop version, because of the way the layout is, you can actually see your streaks and you can see the days you've missed. It's not as easy to view that on the phone, but it does have that feature. So
Right. I
mhm.
think it's like I personally use Todoist as well. That's mainly because of the branding and marketing. I think they've just beaten potentially TickTick in that, and they've gotten past that. But I think I would definitely try this, especially because of the habit tracker. Like I personally have a separate app for that. And Mo's right. It technically is just recurring task that is daily. But I do agree that sometimes making the interface uh, kind of tailored towards habits or that specific task actually makes sense, right? Like it makes it a bit easier than me setting up just daily recurring tasks because I'm trying to wedge in my use case when that's not what that use case is for, right? Potentially. So yeah.
Yeah, and a
Anyways,
daily recurring task, I don't think that's tracked in the sense that you won't be able to tell how many you've done, how many you haven't. Am I right?
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a
I
fair
will.
point as well.
I did say TickTick and Todoist are like 99% similar, and they kind of are. What I think Todoist actually does have that I'm not sure if TickTick may have had this recently, but I can't remember. They do have different formats for your project, like your tracking, right?
Mm.
Like this is something that it like um this is more like sometimes tasks are not just simple
Mm,
like I've done it or and it's done. Sometimes you want to know like what is in the backlog, what you're currently doing, and if it's finished, right? So they do have like
mhm.
this kind of sprint format, which is nice. And I think the other feature that I really liked was they have subtasks that you can link
So,
in a
Mm.
hierarchy.
mm. so,
And
so, so, so TickTick has something similar, but from what you're describing, it seems like now you're threading on the side of something like a
Project
Trello or
management.
Trello
Yeah.
or a ClickUp,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. But Todoist is both, right? It can be your simple like
Mm,
task tracker, etc., or to-do list, but you can also do project tracking to like some degree.
okay. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think giving it a try for both of them would be good. I personally am intrigued. I'd like to try TickTick. But I actually have to still use my Todoist properly because I feel like I
Same,
don't even use that
same.
properly.
I pay for it. I'm
Let's be
like,
honest.
I barely. Ah, man, it's terrible. I think it's more of like a mindset of how to like these. At the end of the day, whatever you use, they're powerful tools. You still have to use them to be useful.
Yes,
Yeah. Of course.
exactly. Yeah, it
Of
always comes
course.
back to the self, man. It's always the space between the chair and the keyboard, which is
Yeah.
the problem, right? It's never the tools themselves, really, or not always.
Absolutely.
All right, we should probably move on to what's hot. I think this was a good share. Um, we're gonna have some interesting conversations. I always love the what's hot segment in our podcast. I think so. We're gonna be talking about Dall E, but then we're also gonna be talking about Instagram Be Real. So please stick around and let us know what you guys think. So, Turan, do you want to kind of introduce Dall E, or should I or Mo?
Go for it. Go for it. I don't
All
know
right.
too much about it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So basically, Dall E, we've talked about Chat GBT a lot on this pod, right? And that's mainly because it was the new thing; it just came out, and we we realized we didn't touch upon their first initial project, which was also very powerful, which is called Dall E. And what they did was OpenAI released this product where you would be able to type in any word or a couple of words and things along those lines, and they would create that image for you, right? And Sam Altman, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, he basically went on Twitter and was like, give me a phrase and I'll generate it for you. Which, first of all, side note, I think that's a brilliant way to market, right? You have a level of engagement from the user,
Yeah.
direct to consumer, that I don't think is possible for a big corporation like that before, right? And so he would basically get input from the user and the customer base before releasing the product and say, tell me what to do. And they'd be like, oh, do this. And then boom, here's the product. And here's the output of it, right? And so that created more and more engagement. And it was a different type of experience, I think, while I was going through that thread, which was amazing. So let me give you a few examples. This one guy said, generate a picture that had pigs teaching human anatomy to other pigs, right? And it was like a pig sitting as a professor teaching other pig students like human anatomy, and he's like pointing towards, and it's like it was in his like office, so it was like a PhD thesis type of setting, and that's how the image came out, and he posted that. And it's
wait, I gotta pause you there. So I actually haven't checked this out. So the image, that the example that you gave, was it animated or like real life?
No, so the picture was made in an animated form, right? It was like a stencil type of drawing. But it would probably, but that's the choice Dall E made at that moment, or the phrasing was make it in this style, right? And then so the AI made it in that style. There was one where it was like, I want to see a I'm forgetting this one, but it was like a dolphin on a yacht under the San Francisco Bridge, something like that, like jumping over the yacht or something like along those lines. And basically random things that likely people have not created. So it could be proven that, okay, this was actually generated on the fly and it wasn't some sort of like Google image that was just pulled up, right? And they were just creating these random examples, and it was able to generate it on the fly in like less than 30 seconds, which I think is phenomenal.
And scary.
That sounds insane, man.
And scary.
It's
yeah.
pretty, like, I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, like, or a specific podcast, and they've brought up like Dall E a lot, and it's just because it's like it's threatening and disrupting a lot of like creative work, right? Which is kind of existential to like how we operate as humans. Like they were talking about like in the future, maybe there's a way where like no one has to create art. It's like you put in a phrase and it will generate a movie for you, right? Like it's interesting to see how, like, I guess the creative community is going to react against this.
Yeah. And this is what I was talking about, right? I've been hearing these things a lot lately as well. And then I thought, you're not going to be able to stop it potentially, right? There's too much demand and there's going to be too many people trying to develop this anyways. So what is the end goal, right? And if you keep thinking about it, it's exactly what I'm coming back to is we're going to be idea printers. Whatever you imagine in your head, you'll be able to create, right? And I think that's where the creation and creative comes from. It's not going to be the fact that like AI is going to generate other art. It probably will, right? Because it's already doing that. But people generally will likely connect with that art as well, but they'll be connecting with the human created art as well, right? Because they will see some sort of human element kind of inside that art that's being created potentially, right? And so I think that then it gets back to the place of everything is just imagination, and that's where it starts from, and that's where it ends, because you have insane amounts of leverage after that fact, right? I don't know. I still think that they'll still have like jobs. It just won't be the same jobs. Like there probably won't be, there'll be less production assistants in the world, right? But producers will still exist because they still have to fund certain projects, fund certain technologies, perhaps, right?
I still think
But
like,
yeah,
I guess if we're talking about specifically movies, I think there'll be more of an emphasis on real like people movies, like shot with like real actors, like I guess kind of a return. Like right now, everything is like AI or not AI generated. Like what's the word?
CGI.
CGI, yeah. Like CGI generated these big kind of action films, and I think you'll start to see like a return to like just basic human actors, right? With like minimal CGI. I think it's gonna be the same thing with art. Like I think NFTs were a big thing, but now like if Dall E can generate a billion fucking images digitally in a second, like I think people are just gonna start placing value on what AI can't do, which is like pick up a paintbrush and paint a physical canvas, right? Like I
Yeah,
think
that's a
that
fair point.
good. That's a good point.
It's supply and demand, right? You're right. It's like I think that's where the price goes down, though, right? That's exactly what technology always has done, is it's reduced the cost of things, right? And so when you can generate, as long as it works, like people pay so much money to generate yeah, YouTube thumbnails. We were talking about this trend. And so if now an AI program can do that for you, now it's more accessible for other people to be able to do that, right? And so I don't think it's a negative in that front, but I do agree that it's a negative for certain artists that were just kind of like they were just doing the bare minimum, right? But the artists that had a true like they were on
Gift.
the other true gift, they were on another level, their art's just going to get more and more valuable, I think, because
yeah,
of this.
I think the first thing it's going to affect is like graphic designers. Like if your thing is to create icons for or not icons but like
Logos.
logos, yes, sorry, logos for companies, and a company can look at like, okay, you can create this, I can create like 10,000 logos via this AI, and I'm just going to choose one I like, right?
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think like it will affect a bunch of them, right? But I have a friend who's in graphic design, and the way she approaches her clients and the way she thinks about what that person truly wants, I think the value from her is not the actual graphic design, not the output, really. I think the value that she actually derives is way before that. It's the conversation she has with you about your company, about what you believe, about what you want this to represent, that the person doesn't even know those things before they have that conversation. And then she extracts that information and puts it down on paper, and then eventually has that concept be represented in the design. That's where the value is. Because I think she could pay someone, like do a quick sketch and be like, all right, you graphic design, do it. But yeah, try, and you have something to say?
Yeah. To your point, what she's doing is she's able to capture the emotion in her design. And I think
Yes.
it goes back to that, and this has been said before about robots, right? The one thing robots can't do is it can't depict emotion or capture emotion.
Yeah.
And yet, I guess, yeah, right. But and I think that to your point, so that may be the drawback of AI for now, where you won't be able to capture that same emotion that the person is looking for
Right.
in that in the logo or whatever is being designed, right? So
Agreed. And it was funny because it's we were obviously chat GPT, you can generate programs, right, very quickly. And I read this thread and I'm like, yeah, like that's so true. Like there just, is there going to be a need for software engineers? And this one guy wrote a thread where he's like, yeah, like we're still going to need software engineers. Who the hell's going to understand the chat GPT output? Like you
I
still
think
need engineers.
that's a good point.
I think
I was like, good point. Shit, I never thought of
if
that.
an AI can code on its own and make it correct, I think we have bigger problems to deal with, like, the Terminators coming for
Age
us.
of Ultron.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Fair
at
point.
that
Fair point.
at that stage, like, bro, there's no,
It's game over.
resistance is futile. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's fair. It's gonna be like Boston Dynamics times 100 because they don't sleep. So they're extremely fast at generating code. So imagine like a minute to them is like days and days and days for us, right? So they could probably the output they can come up with, and there's just a simulation of the test cases while it's running. Like it'd be insane. You're right. Like I think, but if you think about it, with ChatGPT, they are able to generate fairly correct programs, right? I think his point was they weren't able to see issues with programs, which was interesting. So they couldn't, you input a program, it was very hard for it to debug the program, which is 60% of my job, to be honest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you think it could get to that point where it could debug? But I guess then it hits most point, right? It's like now
think
it's able to solve its own problem.
Yeah. If an AI can code like well, then it can code itself. And at which point, like, there's not going to be any knowledge work for humans to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to be exponentially self-improving, right? Without our input. So at that case, it's already a living thing.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I think then it gets into a very philosophical conversation of there's this thing known as the hard problem of consciousness. I'm not sure what the update on that is, but they're essentially saying like a lot of smart people are running into this issue of like, what is consciousness? Is it created? All that kind of stuff. That would be the only difference between AI and us then, right? Because if it's not a physical brain product of the brain, your consciousness, then that would be the difference between humans or living things and this AI, right? But if it is the case that even consciousness is a function of the brain, at least if that's what most people think it is, then yeah, what is the difference? Then there would be no difference between AI and a human, right? Which would be very interesting. Other than the fact that they're probably indestructible and they can be recreated, like we can actually die.
All right. On a lighter tone, what's our next what's hot?
Yeah. All right. So this one is not as I guess destructive to the whole world. At least we think. Instagram challenging Be Real with candid stories. So essentially, what Instagram did was, and this has been done before, right? We've seen this with other big corporations. They kind of try to copy and mimic certain features of different platforms, right? This has happened with Snapchat, Twitter and Clubhouse, Snapchat and Instagram, right? I guess Instagram's doing it twice because Be Real came in the arena, and so if you haven't heard of Be Real, and you might not have, to be honest, I hadn't heard it for a while, and it's essentially you have to take a picture. It gives you a prompt, and you have to take a picture right away in about 2 minutes. And it's trying to make it so that you are presenting your real self versus the filtered and kind of perfect self that you try to put on Instagram. And so Instagram was like, all right, we see your Be Real kind of feature, and we raise you candid stories, right? And so what they started doing was they're like, we're going to create the same feature essentially with candid stories where it prompts you and you do something similar, right? So I don't know. I think it's very interesting. What do you think about this one? I feel like you have thoughts on it right away.
I don't know. Like, this is the second time that Instagram is going to go out and try to kill, I guess, a competing social media thing, because they killed Vine, which kind of sucks, and then Vine came back as TikTok, which sucks for Instagram, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't
Isn't
know.
that when they released Reels?
Huh? Yeah.
Wasn't Reels released because of TikTok?
No. Reels was released, I think, in response to Vines and Snapchat. No?
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
I don't know.
I thought
I personally
Stories was Stories
Yeah.
was Snapchat.
Yeah.
And
Stories
It
was
was in response
Snapchat.
and
to
Reels
Snapchat.
was Vines,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
which
No, Reels was TikTok, I think. Reels was TikTok because
no,
you can
Reels
keep
is
going up in
before
return.
TikTok.
Oh, really?
It's
Okay.
because of
Oh,
Vine.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I thought
Oh,
it was
interesting.
TikTok because TikTok had a very like I know definitely shorts, like YouTube shorts is
Yeah.
because of the
Yeah,
whole
that's
Oh,
TikTok
yeah.
kind
definitely
of
TikTok. But
phenomenon.
I think
Yeah,
Reels
yeah.
was originally because of Vine.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not Gen Z enough to have too much an
Yeah.
opinion on Be Real versus Candid, to be honest.
Yeah.
I still use
Fair
Instagram
point.
on the website, so my opinion is
Oh, yeah. Mr. 2005 over here. I
That's
love how we
hilarious.
still gave him 2005. It's more like 1999.
Yeah, seriously. Even when those platforms didn't exist, but let's
Yeah.
just push you back
Yeah.
then. That's crazy. But yeah, no, it's very interesting. I think Instagram has a history of doing this. They did lose to I personally think they didn't lose to Snapchat, but they didn't really take out Snapchat as
Yeah.
much as I thought they would have, right?
Yeah.
They offered Snapchat what, 3 billion, I heard? A billion,
What?
3 billion? I don't know. Yeah. They
And
offered
Snapchat said
to
no to that?
Snapchat is
Mark
dumb.
Zuckerberg.
Like
I don't know.
the
I
guy
don't want to know
running
what
Snapchat,
Snapchat's market value is. Sorry.
nothing.
Go ahead.
They're investing a lot into different things, right? Like I think they went the AR route, and it will be interesting to see what happens in Snapchat in the next couple of years. I think they might capitalize on that. They created these called Snap Lens or something, which is
Okay.
basically just capitalizing on AR and how that might take a huge role in our lives in the incoming future. But if they win on that front, then I think they might do well.
Actually, now that you mention it,
There's still
Snapchat,
value.
yeah, like you can. I guess they have a couple ways to generate revenue, but like the ones I thought was interesting that you can add or you can pay for your own filter, which I think as things get
Yes,
more personalized,
personalized.
it's an interesting thing.
And people do.
Yeah.
A lot of people do, right?
Yeah,
Like
for
you'll go to
weddings.
weddings. There you go. Right? People and events in general, they know people are on Snapchat. Like my wife, it's her. She loves Snapchat, and she Snapchats all her friends and things along those lines. They have those. I think they did. What is that called? Streaks. They're very smart with that. Like for some reason, there's an innate need for people on Snapchat to keep streaks alive. I don't understand it yet. I plan to, but I think it's a very important human psychological thing that keeps people on Snapchat. First, it's that, and secondly, they did a very good job of memories. So Google is trying to do that with their photos and bring back things, but Snapchat was the originator of that. Every so often they'll say, "Oh, this day last year you did this," right? And they just have so many memories saved on Snapchat that they have vendor lock-in. They can't get out of it.
Which is funny to me because the original thing for Snapchat was like privacy and your photos are not saved. Well, I don't know how they got so many memories because I don't remember like saying save.
That's a good point. But everything is kind of like fleeting unless you click save. If you click save, then it actually does save it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
that's a good point. By the
That is
way,
a very good point.
Snapchat's market cap's at 14 billion, so I guess they did a good job saying no to Mr. Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Like when I originally saw that, I was like, wow, like that was a dumb move. Like he should have probably exited, right? But he clearly saw a vision that he realized that was
Yeah.
bigger than 3 billion, right? If they do win on that AR lens front, I really think they will do well. But that's why Meta is like tripling, quadrupling down on freaking just metaverse and even AR. I know they're working on AR stuff as well, right? So
Yeah.
they're directly competing to be
I
that
feel
platform.
like Apple might eat their lunch when it comes to AR. Like Apple's been building their AR support for very like in plain sight, but not advertised. Like that's what they're doing, but that's what they're doing.
Right. No, I agree. I think they'll just outlive Facebook, just because they have so much cash. They're not spending as much.
Yeah.
Right. Facebook's trying to get there first. Apple is like, we have the platform already, and we're just gonna capitalize on that and leverage that, and we're just gonna outlast you.
Yeah.
Right.
Apple's like, hold my iPhone.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's like, we don't need to sell people like goggles. They have their phone, right? They'll just use their phone. It's all good.
Yep. And they understand that the fact that nobody's gonna get rid of their phones unless Mark Zuckerberg for some reason thinks the phone is now just gonna be glasses, and your SIM card and everything is just gonna be up here, and everyone's gonna have glasses, and now you can switch between AR and VR at any point. And if they make it appealing enough where it looks good, I could maybe see it. But it has to be some sort of like wearable.
We're far away from having that be portable. Like,
yeah,
dude,
I agree.
What, like, I'm trying to think, when was the first like official like proper VR headset release, and how prevalent is VR tech? Like, my computer can't run VR games. Like, it takes a lot, and it's a lot of setup.
Really? Your computer could probably run VR games.
Nah,
your like desktop or your laptop?
My desktop. My graphic card is not powerful enough.
Huh. Interesting.
By the way, we're way off tangent right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's fair. From candid stories into AR.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, no, I personally think like you with AR and VR, you might be right. Like they might be whiles away, but at the same time, it's like it depends on concentration, right? Like how much concentration do you have towards one kind of product, right? Usually these things develop over a very long time because there's like one company working on it very slowly, and it's like tinkering, etc. Like Facebook's putting a lot of like $4 billion a freaking quarter on this shit, and they're just throwing resources at it because they just want to make this platform the first person or first company to make it, and as quickly as possible. That's their goal, I think.
Sorry, Taran. I hate to like hijack the Be Real stuff.
That's all good.
On the AR front, John Carmack left Facebook and their VR project, and like because he just disagreed with the decisions.
Who's John Carmack?
You guys don't know? Oh my god, yo,
nah.
John Carmack.
Google's John Carmack.
John Carmack.
I feel like I've heard of him, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I guess like the TLDR is that he is the creator of Doom, the video game, but that's not why he's like. It's part of why he's famous, but he's famous because he coded like a very hard problem to solve at the time. Like people were trying to solve it in like universities and shit. He created the algorithm for that in a video game just because he needed to create it.
Wow.
Like that's why Doom was like the first like 3D like video game, is because like the lighting effects of the graphics was his algorithm, and that's why it's so performant.
Wow. Did not know that.
But
okay,
he's like,
I will definitely be listening to some of his talks.
Yeah, like I don't want listeners to think like, oh, he's just a video game programmer. He's a lot more than that. He's like a really smart dude when it comes to programming and math. And like his focus has been on VR for a very long time. So, and like he was originally on Oculus, and then Facebook poached him and Oculus because of it, and then he just left because he didn't like the direction.
Wow. Interesting. That's crazy. I just remembered another programmer. So this is going to get really nerdy very soon. So if you guys want to check out and just skip like 5 minutes, that's your choice. Is gonna But I'm going to talk about this guy named Jeff Dean, who is known as like the Chuck Norris of computing. Have you heard of him? No? Okay. It's hilarious. There's like jokes. There's like Chuck Norris jokes or Jeff Dean jokes, right? Which people say. So it's like, I don't know, I'll read a random one. Jeff Dean got promoted to level 11 in a system where max level is 10. Right? 1 second. Oh, these are so.
Okay, let's save
I
these
gotta
for.
find.
Let's save these quotes for the end.
Oh yeah, it was like when God said, "Let there be life." Jeff Dean was there to do the code review.
That was good. That
It's
was
so
good.
stupid. Compilers don't warn Jeff Dean. Jeff Dean warns compilers. Why am I so nerdy? I love these. These are too good. Anyways, we'll definitely save these for the end. But I think overall, in conclusion, I think yeah, Instagram challenging be real. Be real is something that they're just in their DNA. I feel like
Yeah.
they're competing, right? I personally think it is going to take a hit to Be Real because it's not as big of a platform as Snapchat was relative to where Be Real is right now. And so I think it'll take a hit.
Vine was huge when it got took down. Like,
That's a fair point.
but yeah, I think last week,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
guess spinning back to like a Twitter product. I think our last week's question was, what kind are you guys considering Twitter alternatives? Are you guys moving to anything? Do you guys want to start off?
Yeah, sure. I can go. I think Twitter itself is still doing well in terms of it hasn't changed the engineering for me. As in it's still performant. It's not. It's still giving me the information I want to get. And so it hasn't really changed for me as much as people are saying it has changed. And until that happens, I think I'm gonna stay on Twitter. Because I don't care for the shenanigans that Elon Musk is doing. I don't really care. It doesn't really affect me either way.
Mm.
So I just tend to stay on because I am still getting value from that, right? The moment that changes, I think I'd probably be leaving. Tran?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think Twitter has such a strong network moat. Just if you viewed it from an investment angle, they just have so many users on that platform. And um, I was reading a stat, or I heard about a stat the other day. Mastodon got like a truckload of signups. I don't know the exact number over the past. I think it was the past month, but the total signups that they got was like 0.78 of the Twitter users, like the entire Twitter users, right? So it's
Wow.
like it's not even a dent. It's not even
Yeah.
a dent, and that was over I think it was 300 or 3,000% increase for Mastodon in terms of their
Yeah.
sign up. But the dent to market share of the users on Twitter was like 0.78,
Right.
which is nothing,
I'm
right?
fairly surprised it was 0.78. Like even
Yeah.
that is surprising to me. That's a fairly high relative to what I thought it was, to be honest.
So you think 0.78 is a high number?
For
Relative
Mastodon,
to what I thought for
from
Mastodon,
yeah,
exactly.
it's Mastodon is very niche. Like, this is probably the best thing in their lives because
Yeah.
it's not
They
user
probably have
friendly.
shrines of Elon Musk right now. Like, thank you.
I know, because I don't think Mastodon is built to be mainstream. It just isn't.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
yeah.
Again, it's not going to have the engineering capability of Twitter, right? Like,
But it
how is it
doesn't
going to
need to.
scale?
The whole
Yeah.
thing is to be decentralized, so they don't have to deal with the scale.
No, but you'd still have to deal with you wouldn't be able to get real time updates like Twitter does. Like, it just wouldn't be possible, right?
I guess what I'm trying to say is like, not in the sense of like you're supposed to be in like a server group or whatever. And I guess
Right.
when a server group does get that big where it is similar to like Twitter size, then they'll have to deal with it. But for now, the
I see
whole
what you're saying.
point is to like break off all these like little groups into their own servers.
Yeah. That's fair. Have their own community so
Yeah,
it doesn't get that big.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
fair.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, for me, I signed up for Tumblr. I have not logged in. The conversation, the conversation is still on Twitter, but I am not optimistic about Twitter's future. I think I'll give
Hmm.
two reasons. one is just the financials. Like, I think Twitter was not super profitable before when it was a public company, and now they have $44 billion worth of debt, and they've driven away a lot of good faith from advertisers. So they're kind of like in the sticks for money, right? Like, what's the interest on 44 billion? I don't know. Must be a lot more than my paycheck
Yeah.
at least. And then the second thing is like, I think social media things are like fads, and Twitter's actually been pretty good about not being a fad, but I think it's starting to become a fad. Like,
Interesting.
Facebook was a fad, Instagram is starting to become an old fad, right? We were just talking about Be Real and all its competitors. Like, these just like it's a cycle, and Twitter has not changed. And I mean, they have tried with Vines and Periscope. They should have kept those products around. It might be a different story, but the core Twitter product hasn't changed, and I
Oh
think
yeah,
people are gonna.
Periscope.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it's just it's just gonna lose to time.
Yeah, I think the only thing they did new was the spaces, right? That's just because of Clubhouse. I
Yeah.
think that was a good move on their part. They had the users for it.
Oh,
I don't know.
280
I still,
words. That's
yeah,
the
yeah,
biggest change in Twitter, bro.
yeah, and threads,
Yeah.
just like actually supporting threads properly somehow. Yeah, no, I agree though. I see your point. And I agree that like social media platforms are generally fads. I just think Twitter has this unique capability of just being, as Elon Musk said, like the town square, right?
Yeah.
You're able to share information in a different way. Facebook was like that, but it just didn't work the same. You didn't get updates at a global level in terms of like you had Facebook groups, but it was kind of like you had to join the group to get that information. With Twitter and the hashtags, that made it possible to just be a part of different conversations or see the conversation happening of
In
a
real time.
totally in real time of totally unrelated topics that you weren't really necessarily wanting to commit to, but you just want to know what that conversation is, right?
And the
I think
connections
that's what made it
too.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah, the connections too. Like you can literally message any one of these celebrities. They may not respond back to you, but you
Yeah.
can connect with them, and it happens all the time, right? A lot of people hire people on Twitter. They'll put job postings, or they'll put requests, looking for whatever graphic designer, video editor, and
Right.
they'll get people from Twitter. Like,
Yeah.
it's a great place to connect. Great
Yeah.
For
place,
now.
especially with people especially with people from a certain industry or niche that you might be looking to be an expert in, or you might be working in, right?
Yeah.
You can connect with the top of the top in that, and find out how they got to their position, learn from them, possibly mentor with them. Those kinds of things don't really happen on other platforms.
Agreed. Yep. I agree. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We are fairly over the time block here. This is probably going to be our longest episode at 58 minutes. So please do take a listen. Put in the comments below if you guys want us to talk about certain topics that you think we haven't talked about. We'll see you next time on the Select All podcast. My name is Kawinder. And this is Turan and Mo.
What up?
All right. Take care, everyone. See you next time.